Craft brewers here in the US have always been focused on building communities around their great beers. Open spaces with large tables, board games, and friendly atmospheres are staples of tap rooms all across the country. So it's no surprise that beer lovers and brewers alike want to harness that energy and support great causes for the betterment of the communities in which they live and work. Countless local brewery fundraisers have benefited causes like keeping pollutants out of waterways, helping adoptable animals, or even more obscure causes like giving rock instruments to underprivileged youths. In recent years, many brewers have gone one step further than this, though, teaming up with other breweries around the country and the world to brew beers and raise money for national-level causes. And while the nation currently grapples with many issues that impact all of us, I think it's only fair to take a look at how breweries are trying to find their place in the solution. So it's time for this critical thinking beer nerd to take a hard look at beers for a cause. Are they really a successful way to get resources towards important charities? Or are they just a fluky marketing gimmick, and possibly an illegal one at that? Hey, this is Ryan with Beer by the Numbers, and America has faced a whole host of problems coming to a head ever since the year 2020. COVID-19, police brutality, food insecurity, and threats to our civil liberties, just to name a few. Craft brewers, like every other industry, have struggled to find their place in the solution to all these problems. Amongst all the changes and innovations brewers have been pumping out in 2020, cause-based collaboration brews have exploded in popularity. The core idea is pretty simple, and on the surface seems like an easy win. You find a couple of your fellow craft brewer friends, get together, brew the same beer recipe, and dedicate a portion of the sales or profits to a cause you feel quite strongly about. And you're not exactly going out on a limb by doing this nowadays either. In the fall of 2018, Sierra Nevada ran an extremely successful collaboration beer campaign that saw hundreds of breweries across the country brewing up the Resilience IPA. This beer was dedicated to raising money for wildfire relief after a devastating fire ripped through Butte County, California, destroying nearly 19,000 structures across 159,000 acres of land. Being both the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in California's history, the Resilience IPA garnered a lot of press from news outlets and industry publications at the time. The Grossman family of Sierra Nevada saw firsthand the impacts of the fire, and before the fire had even been contained, they not only had set up a plan to have breweries across the country brew the same beer to raise funds, but had over 400 breweries signed up to participate. By the time the calendar turned over to 2019, Resilience had more than 1,400 craft brewers making a version of the IPA, and the well-branded IPA was being sold across the country, all for the benefit of California fire relief. Many breweries got to ride on this wave of good publicity by coming together on a national level to solve a big problem. Sierra Nevada had another set of headlines go out, estimating that Butte County would receive upwards of $15 million thanks to the generosity of the craft beer community. Unfortunately, by June of 2019, some drama had also brewed up around the Resilience IPA. Sierra Grossman sent out an email to the 1,500 brewers signed up and participating, thanking them for their efforts, but noting that less than half of the overall pledges had been returned for the benefit of the intended charities. Suddenly, beer drinkers who thought they were being generous and supporting a good cause had to wonder whether or not the charity actually received any money from their local brewer. And of course, brewers began to speculate which other breweries may have been holding out, and as to why. The conversation around the Resilience IPA transformed from one of brewers coming together for the greater good into one of mistrust and speculation. Ultimately, though, this effort was the most successful collaboration beer ever done, raising just over $7 million for wildfire relief. Such a well-publicized collaboration had many others in the beer industry asking, was this success just a fluke? Or was this a tool that could be used to do a lot more good in the community? As a hardcore numbers guy, I want to look at some of the hard and fast metrics to see if this campaign, and more importantly others that have been undertaken since, are successful at generating long-term buzz for the causes they're working for. One of my favorite places to start is Google Trends data. Using resilience as our gold standard for the collaborative brewery fundraiser, we can see that people starting to search for Resilience IPA beginning in November 2018, followed by a huge spike in when people began to buy the beer, and then a gradual tapering off heading into March and April of 2019. All in all, the campaign not only sustained some huge press and buzz, but it also had good national level support, with not just the West Coast area most impacted Googling the beer much of the time. More recently, in the response to closures related to COVID-19 pandemic, some 800 breweries in 53 countries joined Other Half Brewing in creating a collaborative beer to support the hospitality industry. According to their website, Altogether is a worldwide open-ended collaboration created to raise support for the industry we love so much. Their website is definitely worth checking out for the great recipe and branding resources, as well as a cool participating brewery map, but let's see how their Google Trend data looks. All in all, this isn't too bad. The timescale is much shorter, peaking in early April of 2020, but really only managed 2 solid months of buzz towards raising money. But if we look at interest by geography, we see that it didn't really develop too much outside of the northeastern United States, where Other Half Brewing is located. While this certainly was a good outcome for a craft brewer looking to raise money for the beleaguered hospitality workers of the world, it certainly didn't gain nearly the traction that Resilience IPA did. And more recently, in June of 2020, San Antonio, Texas's Weathered Souls Brewing announced its Black and Beautiful collaboration. Black is Beautiful is a collaborative effort to raise awareness for the injustices people of color face daily and raise funds for police brutality reform and legal defenses for those who have been wronged. A noble cause indeed, and one really backed up by the headlines and protests that were happening across the country all throughout the summer of 2020. And we look at that Google Trend data, it definitely appeared to be the more successful brew of 2020. We see 6 solid months of engagement in terms of searches over time, and a much wider geographic spread than Altogether was able to achieve. And it makes sense that they got a little more spread. According to their website, they had over 1,100 breweries in 22 countries participating to get the word out about this cause. But while these collaboration beer websites do provide some great background and numbers to feed my beer nerd curiosity, there is one key fact that seems to be missing from more recent fundraising brews. How much is getting raised, and where is all that money going? Sierra Nevada took on the immense responsibility of collecting and dispersing the proceeds raised from the Resilience IPA. And while it certainly created a little bit of drama around some breweries not returning their pledged funds, it did allow for us to get really concrete sense of the impact this shared beer had in the community. So far, we haven't received such concrete fundraising numbers from Altogether or Black is Beautiful from their organizing breweries. Their websites do a great job of explaining the stories behind the beer and offering breweries a place to sign up and drinkers a place to search for those breweries who are participating, but there hasn't been much follow-up as of yet. I'm sure they would love to be able to provide hard numbers and large lists of nonprofits that have been supported by their participating breweries, but this lack of data exposes probably the biggest flaw in these collaboration beers: a general lack of accountability. As we covered earlier in the video, even a brewery as big and well-organized as Sierra Nevada had a really tough time ensuring that pledges were being submitted for just a limited number of charities related to wildfire relief in California. And while smaller brewers have taken on a big responsibility creating a recipe, developing the branding, and promoting the hell out of a hashtag, it appears clear that centralizing and documenting donations is beyond the scope of a lot of these collaborative beer projects. So unfortunately, it's becoming increasingly hard to confirm that your purchase of one of these beers is actually benefiting the cause it says it is, and it's increasingly easy for brewers to get away with not donating the proceeds. There is no doubt that raising awareness can be a great benefit towards making a difference with real issues in the community, but some critics say this represents a pretty low bar of engagement. Even some of the brewers who design these programs admit that it's a little bit like trying to put a band-aid over a gaping wound. Because their organization is so decentralized, so is the impact that it has, and breweries left a lot to their own devices will disperse the funds in whatever way they deem most important. But perhaps the biggest critique of these craft beers for a cause is one that could land these well-meaning breweries in some legal hot water. In the United States, alcohol control agencies prohibit breweries from providing inducements. That is, a brewery can't induce a patron to buy through means of solicitation, payment, free goods, or other things of value. For example, California and Business Professions Code section 24200.5b requires a mandatory license revocation if a brewer, quote, allows any person to solicit or encourage others directly or indirectly to buy drinks in the licensed premises under any commission, percentage salary, or other profit-sharing plan, scheme, or conspiracy. Now, while such a rule sounds pretty weird and a little bit simple, and like it would only cause problems in some very esoteric situation, the reality is not so clear. Some beer law scholars have wondered if beer for a cause could in fact constitute an inducement. The issue comes down to the fact that if you're really, really supportive of a cause, say racial equality, you're probably much more likely to purchase a beer from a brewery making black is beautiful, especially if it cuts into the purchase price or profits to go to the cause you care about. The argument is that this could constitute a profit-sharing arrangement or a scheme that indirectly benefits the purchaser by supporting a cause that they really, truly care about. And while this does seem pretty theoretical, there are plenty of people who earn a living trying to address problems like racial inequality or lobbying for hospitality industry relief. Customers could easily create conflicts of interest for the breweries without realizing it, simply by purchasing a beer and trying to help out the community issues they care about. But in my research, I haven't come across a case of any alcohol control board or entity declaring officially that these cause-based beers violate the rules issued or have levied any fines. But in the litigious states of America, I wouldn't be surprised if eventually one of these rather decentralized efforts spawned a series of lawsuits. Regardless of their potential illegality, beers for a cause are likely here to stay. Ever since resilience blew up in popularity, there have been more and more cause-based beers every year. Despite some critics calling them not much more than hashtags, I think brewers find them a great way to help the community and generate a little bit more buzz around their products at the same time. Only time will tell what these decentralized fundraisers become. What do you think of these beers that try to raise money for causes? Do you think they're great tools to build awareness, or are they just skimming on people's goodwill for some extra marketing? Let me know down in the comments section below. And since it's current year, I have to remind you to please be civil. God knows we don't need any more stress out there. Once again, this has been Ryan with Beer by the Numbers, and I'll see you next time for another awareness-raising video. Cheers!